Hey guys, this is Brooks087. I just want to go over a short review of this MAC nylon nozzle for the Tokyo Marui Glock 17. And this is ideally used with the Tokyo Marui Glock 17 magazine. And the reason why that is because the Tokyo Marui magazine has a curved bucking, while the WE has a flat bucking. So that should answer most of the compatibility problems. If you wish to use this on a WE, I suggest you use the Marui magazines or replace your air bucking with a curved bucking. From 9-ball Schroer's design or from Garter, but just keep in mind that due to the fact that we might be using different blowback housing units, different tolerance, different slides, be wary that if you buy certain air buckings that are too high, it might get caught on the nozzle, which as you should expect. If you buy air buckings that are too high, it might snag on the nozzle. Just be wary of that. Like the 9-ball, for example. If you use it on a tight tolerance slide, it will snag. That's a good example. But I digress, back to review. So this is just another aftermarket company making a nozzle, but what makes this nozzle so special is that this nozzle is particularly strong and rigid compared to most of the other nozzles in the market. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is the strongest plastic/nylon nozzle in the market. Now, I know what you guys are going to say. Why not use a UAC metal nozzles? Well, I'm one of the gas blowback people who believes that plastic and nylon material nozzles are much better for gas blowback guns. I'm not going to go into the whole debate as to why I think that. I'm just going to tell you that in my experience, I find nylon and plastic materials to be far better and far more appropriate for gas guns. They just tend to work a little bit better in my experience. That's just my personal opinion. If you like the UAC nozzle, go ahead and use it, but I personally have my own preferences, and that's the reason why I look at nylon and plastic nozzles more so than metal nozzles. Okay. So let's go over the external features, and I'm also going to be doing a brief discussion about comparing it to the Airsoft Surgeon nozzle, because someone actually asked me to update my review on some stuff, and also asked me to compare it to the Airsoft Surgeon nozzle. I'll talk about that later on. But first, let me just go over the external features. So right off the bat, the internal has been polished, very, very smooth. Don't worry about it. It will maintain a very good air compression with whatever piston that you're using. It is worth noting that the diameter of this piston, which I don't have a caliper here handy, sorry about that, I haven't used a caliper in many years because my one broke. I'll buy one soon, but I can tell you that this diameter is not particularly tight and not particularly narrow. It's about the same as the Tokyo Marui one, and this is appropriate for the Tokyo Marui piston. You can also use a PDI piston if you wish, but I find that this tends to stick a little bit to the PDI piston a little bit too much, just because the PDI piston requires a certain specific O-ring size. The reason why is just because it's an oddball size O-ring. If you don't order your O-rings regularly, it's an oddball size O-ring to find. If you order O-rings, it's very, very easy to do. But if you don't, it's a little bit difficult to work with if you use a PDI piston, like that one right over there. I can also tell you that this will work well with most other piston cups, like the Garter ones, like the advanced ones. Those will work perfectly fine. The Garter one will actually work quite well with this. I suggest you use this with Garter. I'm using an AKA blowback housing unit, which has a built-in piston, and I'm using a custom O-ring to maximize my air seal. So my O-ring size has been modified with electrical tape. And the reason why is because the O-ring already reached its maximum size. I could no longer heat it up with a lighter, and that's the reason why I'm using electrical tape to buff it up. But anyways, just to let you know, I'll show you guys later on, by the way, because I've been abusing my MAC nozzle since the first day in here, and I'm going to show you the damage that it has experienced in this Glock. So, anyways, I digress, back to the main point. So, going over the external features also, the next external feature is the overall finishing on externally. So externally is that it has a grainy texture outside here. It's not super grainy, but just a little bit. You can even tell on camera that it's slightly grainy. And this molding mark over here on the left and right side is very, very low profile, so don't worry about that. You don't have to sand it or anything like that. And another feature is the nozzle tip. The nozzle tip texture and the rest of the nozzle is actually different. You can tell because it's glossier over here. The reason why they did this, I think, is for better air compression with your hop-up rubbers. But I will warn you right now that if you use hop-up rubbers such as the 9-ball hop-up rubber, or if you like to use the maple leaf rubbers that are 70, 75 degree, or 80 degree or above, well actually the maximum is 80. If you use 70 to 80 degree rubbers, it will snag and pinch onto this, and basically what will happen is that as you pull your slide back, the nozzle will get pinched, and therefore it won't retract properly. And what happens is that basically your gun won't be able to load the second round. So basically you will be dry firing after your second or third shot. It might fire after your third shot, but sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So my warning to you is to not use those nozzles. And frankly, you shouldn't be using those rubbers anyways, because I'm not entirely sure if you should be using a 70 degree rubber on a Glock, unless if you're shooting above 360, 370 FPS. Because the harder the hop-up rubber, the longer that you hold your BB for, right? So if you want to hold your BB for that long on a pistol, it's entirely up to you. I don't suggest you to do that. For a high kappa, it makes a lot of sense, because if you upgrade a high kappa, it can easily reach 380 FPS, and therefore you might need a harder hop-up rubber. That makes a lot more sense to me. Some people are under the impression that harder hop-up rubbers will apply more hop to the BB. In my experience, I don't find that to be true, but that's discussion for another day. I'm just letting you know that in my personal opinion, and in my personal experience with this nozzle, if you use 70 to 80 degree rubbers, it will snag on this for sure. As well as the 9-ball bucking. This 9-ball bucking will definitely snag. I have 2 9-ball buckings just because I had one that had a deformity, and I had one that didn't have a deformity, and I couldn't remember where the deformity was. So therefore I have 2. Which reminds me, where's my other one? You know what, I'll look for another day. Anyway, that's not too important. And as for the internals for the nozzle does not come with any internals. And MAC does not produce any internals for the nozzle as of right now. So right now in my Glock, I'm using the stock Tokyo Marui internals, like the rocket valve locker, the screw for the locker, the rocket valve spring, as well as the rocket valve, which I will show you right now. So this is on a prime slide on a modified Glock. This is my combat Glock. As many of you guys know me personally, I carry this Glock wherever I go. But this is not optimized for the outdoors, because I am using a lighter hammer spring. I'm using a UAC day and night sight. That's the reason why I need Allen keys. And this is my nozzle. So this has been through around 1500 rounds. There's honestly no damage with the exception of this area. This area right here on the top side of the nozzle, on the right side, top right side of the nozzle, this is the area that prevents the nozzle from exiting the blow-by housing unit. And how that works is that as it does this is like a limiter. It prevents it from going past this area. And the reason why that is because if you don't put a limiter on it, sometimes it won't load the next BB properly. If you let this go all the way out, sometimes it might actually just not load your BB. If your compression is very, very explosive, very powerful, your nozzle will just shoot all the way out. That's also the reason why you have an extra nozzle spring, right? It's to help you load your next BB. That's the reason why it's there. That's the reason why you need the spring to return the nozzle, in case the compression and the expansion pushes the nozzle too far, and therefore you won't be able to load your next BB. But that's the reason why it's there. So that area appears to be perfectly fine. Even though it looks like it's chipping, this has been holding up this whole entire time. 1500 rounds, I think it's a very, very good base test for nozzles. Frankly, this lasts longer than the Airsoft Surgeon nozzle, which again I told you that I'll compare it later on. So right off the bat, it's a lot better. The Guns Modified nozzle for me has been pretty good so far, but there's some things that I don't like about it, and I'll go over that in another video another day, because I'm thinking about maybe doing an update on parts, because some of you guys are sort of interested in that, I think. In fact, I delayed this review for a very long time because I frankly haven't had enough time to play pistol games in Hong Kong recently, because I've been very, very busy in my job, so sometimes I don't have the energy to play night games anymore. In Hong Kong, sometimes after work, people like to go play pistol games because pistols are easy to carry in our bags, and we can easily bring them to games and just play pistol games at night, and then go to work the next day. That's how we like to roll. Well, that's how I like to roll. I'm still young, sort of. I'm 21. Still got time. Well, not that much time. Anyways. So that's pretty much more or less from my review, really. Ignore the stuff that I did to my slide. You know what? I'll briefly go over what I did to this Glock, just in case you guys are... so there's only one thing in this Glock that I cannot name the brand, which is the spring, because the spring I ordered from China. I buy aftermarket springs of my own and modify it for my purposes. And I'm using a couple of SA buffers. What this is that this is a prime slide with the UAC day and night sights. This prime slide has been modified quite extensively for speed. So I modified all the areas that increase the barrel drop rate to make sure that the barrel can drop freely, and I also did the modification to the blowback housing unit so that this has the maximum amount of leverage for the rotor, so my Glock can ride smoothly over the rotor. That's the reason why I have that. As for my lower, I'm using UAC, the UAC hammer and sear, and I'm also using the UAC trigger bar. And I'm using a stock modified hammer spring. I taught you guys how to modify hammer springs before. I made a short video about that. You can just look it up on my channel, or I'll leave a bubble here somewhere. And I have a garter-ridged trigger, which needed fitment, by the way. The garter-ridged trigger does not fit in here perfectly. You will need to modify it, because it actually doesn't go in here smoothly. I actually had to file down the frame to make this hole bigger. It's because the trigger is actually wider than the frame. And I have a UAC magwell. This magwell is pretty nice. UAC did a great job. A little bit expensive, but it's pretty nice. And that's all I've done to this pistol. The barrel is still stock. The hop rubber is still stock. I don't do much to my combat pistols just because this is primarily for speed shooting in CQB. It just needs to be fast, right? So as you can see, there's no rotor encounters because there's so much leverage that you don't feel the rotor anymore. In case you guys are curious, that's how I tune all my Glocks. I just get rid of the rotor problem and fix the rest, right? Like the compression, like your spring, tune your spring. That's it. That's all I do. I don't do much, to tell the truth. It's clearly working. The air compression has always been very, very good with these nozzles. The MAC nozzle has been absolutely fantastic in that area. Now, up to this last point of the video, I'm just going to do a quick compression video comparison of the stock nozzle and the aerosol surgeon nozzle, because this was a request by you guys. So just to let you guys know, compared to the stock nozzle, the window on the MAC appears to be a tiny bit smaller and not as long as the stock Tokyo Marui one. This does not appear to affect anything. The curvature also appears to be about the same. Now, as for the tip of the nozzle, I find that the tip of the nozzle of the MAC is slightly wide, but not super wide. It is wider than the Tokyo Marui one for sure, because you can actually visually see the difference. There's a visual difference. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's quite a big visual difference between the hole size and as well as the overall width of the tip. But this MAC nozzle has been working great, working really, really good. I'm actually, again, I'm looking to replace this for most of my Glock 17s, as well as my S3F Glock 17, which I just recently built, which I'll show you guys later on. And the reason why I want to bring this aerosol surgeon to the table is because this nozzle has been one of the most popular nozzles and still regarded as one of the best nozzles available for the Glock. So just to let you know, if you guys didn't know this ahead of time, this information has been out for a while now. This aerosol surgeon nozzle does break. It does have a couple weak points, and it also has a couple points that make this malfunction in the Glock. Albeit, they're all fixable. I'm not going to teach you how to fix it in this video, but I'm letting you know that there are problems with this nozzle. If you are users of this nozzle, you will know. If you haven't encountered this problem yet, you will encounter it. It's because it's well known. you can just try it yourself. Anyway, so let me just quickly go over the problems. So the first problem is that because there's a bit of play with the rocket valve whenever you install in here, people have been tightening the screw to secure the rocket valve, rocket locker tighter into this nozzle. And what that does is that basically it applies pressure here while the rocket valve locker can still move. And what that basically means is that this area will break. This area will actually crack and break. And your rocket valve will actually come right off because this area has snapped off. So it will actually sometimes break a rocket valve locker itself sometimes. So just be wary of that. Another thing is that this is something called sticky nozzle. Sticky nozzle is when the tip of this nozzle is sticking to the hopper rubber by too much. Now, there are two philosophies to this. There are some people who think that you should have the nozzle stick a little bit to the rubber, and there's some who think that it should stick to it for as long as possible. My personal opinion, now this is just based on my experience, keep in mind that I do not know if I'm correct or wrong, but I feel like that it only should stick a little bit, not by too much. It shouldn't be sticking for too long. Ideally, it should be doing that every single time. Not holding on all the way here and then it returns. Now, here's a couple of reasons why. The reason why I think that, it's because if your nozzle goes out by too much, you may have feeding problems. Especially if you short stroke a slide, or if you tune your Glock for speed, like I do, like I always tune my Glocks for speed, you will sometimes encounter loading issues. So that's the reason why you shouldn't have, that's the reason why I think that you shouldn't have the tip of the nozzle too sticky with your hop-up rubber. And this nozzle sticks to virtually every single rubber. Whether or not this will especially stick to the 9-ball rubbers as well as the maple rubbers. This will be extremely sticky. So just be very, very careful of that. If you're having loading problems, or if you're having issues where sometimes your Glock is not firing every single shot, it could be because it's a little bit too sticky. Another good way to test this is that if you leave your Glock sitting here for a day and then you try to wrap your slide, you may see the aerosol surgeon nozzle stick to the rubber so much that you can't pull your slide. You might actually be able to test that for yourself. In extreme situations, you can actually see this problem visually with your own eyes. So that's just something that you can actually try at home if you have one of these. It's very, very hard to find these nowadays because they're still regarded as the best nozzles, so people buy them up like crazy. I myself have two. I broke one already. This is the only nozzle that I haven't used. I keep this for just study reference because I'm personally an enthusiast, so I like to know my parts. I like to keep some of them just to study and sometimes to use them. Since I broke one already, I don't want to break this one, right? And also, if you look online, there's plenty of other people who broke theirs. If you look very, very carefully, if you actually read the long-term users, they have actually broken all of them. Another thing I want to note is that the aerosol surgeon nozzle is wider, so therefore the compression is a little bit trickier to deal with. But aerosol surgeon does provide you with a piston. This is not the correct piston. I think this is a PDI piston for 1911. I can't remember. I have lots of white colored pistons, so I can no longer tell which one is which. But basically, they provide you with a piston to maintain the air seal. But then sometimes this air seal is a little bit too tight, and therefore the nozzle will not retract properly. Which is another reason as to why you sometimes get loading BB issues with this nozzle, is because this is sometimes unable to move smoothly on its own piston. So the traditional getaway of people have been solving this is that sometimes they modify a piston cup and flare it open so they can maintain an air seal with this, which is perfectly fine. You can tackle it in any way you want. I personally like to stick this into an AIP or aka ball back housing unit because there's already a fixed piston, and you can just buy whatever O-ring you want, size it up, and get their air seal like that, which is actually what I've done in here. I'm using an aka ball back housing unit. That's actually what I like to do, is because it's cheaper to do. Okay, that's the reason why I do it. It's not because it's the best way. It's because it's cheaper and easier to maintain and to do. So just to get that out of the way. So basically the MSC has none of those problems. Right? That basically ends the conversation, in my personal opinion. Far more rigid than the aerosol surgeon. Far more rigid. It's very hard for you guys to believe me as to how rigid this nozzle is. If I gave you this nozzle and I gave you this nozzle, you can clearly tell that this is significantly stronger, and all the other areas are to my liking. Like I like the fact that this area is not as wide as the garter nozzle. The garter nozzle has a very, very wide diameter, which makes it tricky for you to find the correct compression for that. And this has just been a pleasure to work with. So that's the reason why this is my favorite nozzle from now on, and I encourage people to buy it. It works. It clearly works. It's just been absolutely fantastic. If you decide to use this for short stroke Glocks, I'm pretty sure you can use this as well. Just remember that if you're short stroking your Glock, make sure you use a stronger nozzle spring. You will need it. If you max out your compression with a tighter O-ring or a piston cup, you will need a stronger nozzle spring with it to feed a short stroke Glock, because a short stroke Glock only requires that much to cock. So if you short stroke your Glock all the way to this point, then you must use a stronger nozzle spring. Some people have been confusing loading nozzle problems with short stroking problems. It also has to do with the nozzle spring. The nozzle spring is also important for the loading of the BB. Anyways, that's it for the video. This video hasn't been too short, but I hope you guys found that informative. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. And please, I would like to know your experiences with this nozzle. It's because this nozzle has been fantastic for me. Would love to know what you guys think of this. Thanks, guys. Thank you for watching. Peace, guys. Happy shooting.